Hey, Mike.
Really, Mike? You came down?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, September 29th, regular meeting of the Committee on Ordinance. The members present are myself, Chairwoman Rebecca Lisi, Counselor at Large. Starting from the left is Counselor Gordon Alexander, representing Ward 7, Counselor David Bartley, representing Ward 3, and to my right, Counselor Linda Vacan, representing Ward 5. The first couple of orders on our agenda this evening deal with traffic ordinances from various counselors. We do have Superintendent of the DPW, Bill Fuqua, here, and our new city engineer, Yem. The last name is? Yem. Leb. Yem Leb. So we would like to invite in the superintendent and our new city engineer and have a discussion about these different orders. Please join us.
The spelling of our
Welcome. Just again, can you say and spell your name up for us, because we're all so new to you?
My name is Yem Lip, spelled Y-E-M,
Yem?
first name, and last name is Lip, L-I-P.
I like it. Lip.
Be phonetic.
Just like it sounds.
Welcome and congratulations on the appointment.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the first item on our agenda is an item filed by Councilor LeBron Martinez. Is there, I'd like to entertain a motion to take it up.
Motion to take up, item 1?
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? So moved. This is that the city council allow changes to provide 3 or 4 parking signs in front of Lawrence School on Cabot Street side that will say no parking between 8 and 9 a.m. drop off and 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. for pickup for safety purposes. Under discussion, I know, Bill, you've gone through the agenda and have some recommendations for us. So I think for each item, we'll just defer to you and then we'll ask questions based on your recommendation.
Okay, sure. I've met with Councilor LeBron Martinez on the site earlier in the summer prior to the start of school, and they talked about safety issues and crossings and all. It's a common discussion we've had over the years there at Lawrence. One of the things that the principal, one of the suggestions the principal was looking for was possibly some drop-off spaces along Cabot Street between the walkway of the school down toward Maple Street, and maybe 4 spaces that could be designated for drop-off and pick-up parking, and didn't see a problem with that. And the principal thought it would help with the safety of the students and the parents coming and picking up their children. So it's something that if the council sees fit, we can craft the ordinance to around these hours and put up signage to restrict parking there.
Sure. Councilor LeBron Martinez has joined us. Gladys, do you want to add anything to this, or?
So I'm quite sure you've covered a lot.
He did cover a lot of it, but
So again, I am in support of this. It's been an issue. I live right around the corner and I see the traffic being held up and this, how the children are crossing from one end to the other.
you need a microphone.
Oh,
Sorry.
So, as mentioned, I am in support of this order. Of course, that I was the person who filed it, but it is it is something that I've seen myself as I live around the corner in the traffic in the morning, and how some parents are kind of pulling off on the other side too, and sort of double parking while they're trying to drop off. So I think this will help and alleviate the issue that is actually the concern of the principal and the parents and administration as a whole. So I support that.
Okay, and then Counselor Alexander?
Thanks. Bill or Gladys or whoever wants to answer this question. Is this an area where we're looking to, where people are parking and escorting their child into the school? Or they're just dropping a kid and they need a safe space to drop a kid?
So, there is the parking space that is there. It's taken by other people, for example. So I think what she's trying to do is limit it at a certain hours, correct? So that this is the drop off time, and then after and in between that time they can park, but that is
But so
restricted.
what we want is people not to be able to get out of their car and walk into the school. It's no parking, meaning you have to be in your car. You can stand for a moment.
Yeah, they can. It's a
Sit there with the
it's a
engine running.
15-minute parking. The request was for like a 15-minute sort of parking request.
Well, 15-minute parking is different than
It's
no
no-
parking.
No, no,
That's
no.
why I'm asking the question.
It's between the hours that is here. That's just what they said. No parking between 8 and 9:30, which is their drop-off time. And then again, pickup is 2:30 to 3:30.
Okay, so
And it sounds like they just want to keep the cars moving as
no
opposed
parking,
to.
not 15-minute parking.
Right.
Okay, so
sorry.
that was question
So I-
one. And then just a comment, and this is to you, Bill, more, or to Yem? I'm sorry. I hate signs. I think everybody here knows that. The only thing I hate more than signs is really confusing signs. So unless there's some burning reason to allow parking in the middle of the day, if we're going to have no parking in the morning and no parking in the late afternoon, I would suggest we have no parking from, I don't care about the overnight part, but from, the beginning of the school day to the end of the school day, there's no parking. Rather than it's this hour and that hour and alternate Tuesdays when there's a full moon and all the rest of it. So the simpler we can make the prohibition, the better for people to be able to be sure that they're following it and not, I misread the sign because I read it quickly. That's all, thanks.
Counselor Bacon?
Thanks. And along those lines, but a little different take, it seems to me that this is sort of like loading and unloading signs only. And so that if we put it that way, it seems like it might take care of it.
The
People
children, unloading and loading children.
People know what that means, right? Because. Right, but I mean, they know that it's not park for 15 minutes or when it's that kind of language, to your point.
I mean,
My main point is I don't want to see two separate time windows on the same sign. I think that's confusing, and unless there's some burning need for people to be able to park there in the middle of the day, I think we can probably just
I think we
make
should
the
consider
requirement all day long.
a Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Does that sound like it makes sense?
The only thing I want to throw out is the parking, on-street parking in that area is at a premium.
limited.
It's pretty jammed up during the school time, and, there may be some benefit to having some parking. It does add to confusion and to sign, but I'll just throw that out, that parking is
I-
tight.
So I want to recognize Counselor Shatnoff, and then I'll come back to you, Gladys.
thank you.
Thank you. I was just gonna piggyback what Linda said and said maybe do a drop-off zone, but then Bill just says that there is a need for parking, so I'll scratch that.
Gladys?
I think, again, if we probably say drop off, it calls the attention so that they can understand that. I've seen places where it says for parking for, or signs for parking for, I'm sorry, parents or something like that. Like at the job lot, the Save a Lot. There's a
Infant,
what is it called?
Parent with infant parking,
something like that, something like that. And I think people have respected that. They don't park in there. So once it says drop off, I think the hours may be ignored, but when you look at it really, that is drop off between those hours, I feel confident that the parents will see that, and they requested it. This is not only the administration. The parents have said we need a place and a way because they've been pushed out by the officers, and that's their job to not allow you to do double parking on the streets. And it is
the request, and I think it could be done. And it's gonna take a little while for the staff maybe to help you understand that that's what it is only for, and then again, as Bill said, to restrict it just for the whole day to be held off, there's not enough parking in the area. And there's also times that parents come for parents conferences or meetings with the administration, and it can be used in between. So that's also my concern, that if we really do it, limit it for the whole day, that then they cannot park because they're going to get ticketed, and I don't want that to be the case.
Counselor Bacon.
Thanks. I'll hop on to a good idea I think Counselor Bartley had, because I don't think there's harm coming from the signs that are posted that you can take the right on red with the new trials that we've been running at the red lights that were prohibited. And then we limited it, that they're only prohibited at the rush hour times, not all times. So I don't see the harm in putting up a sign that says drop off 8 to 9:30 a.m., pick up, or whatever, 2:30 to 3:30, and that otherwise people can park there because people come in for meetings or they come in to do special classes or trainings at the school. So I don't know, I just think we want to get the flexibility with the safety and not make it more of a problem. So I think we could try it.
Any other comment? Counselor Bartley.
Just Bill, so Bill, the sign would say drop off on it, or something to that effect?
Well, I'm sitting here trying to think of what would be simplified language, depending on what y'all decide on, whether it's one.
Well, I think
Well,
if you
what's
want to.
I'm thinking, what's parking? Do you park your car and you have to go out and go to the other side of the car, unstrap your child, get them out onto the sidewalk? Do you walk them to the door? You know, there's a lot of things. I think part of that will have to be, the staff would have to help monitor that situation where parents are just not parking their car here, dropping their child off, but dropping off is actually taking them into the building and then coming back 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later.
Yeah, I think
That's-
that the drop off is more ambiguous than the no parking. But I think that what they were saying earlier is that they want to free up the parking spaces. Oh, you're right.
Well, how is drop off only
Full
more
parking during
ambiguous?
those hours.
Pretty,
I think,
I mean, drop off only, Madam Chair says, I mean, that's ambiguous to you?
Because this is what Bill is saying. He's saying that what constitutes drop off? Is it pulling up to the curb, opening the door, letting your kid pop out, or is it unbuckling them, walking them to the door, and then coming back to the car? I think the point is to keep the traffic moving, and so drop off.
It'll be open.
Can I
More
ask the maker of the order?
Again, I'm sorry.
What is the behavior that parents are trying to achieve? Do they want, I asked this in the first place, do parents want to walk their kids to the school? Do they want to be able to
We didn't
just
get that
have the
deep.
kid jump out of
We
the
did
car?
not get that deep, but I tell you that with the administration discussion, they are actually out there already keeping the safety for the children. So what we probably would go back and say, we've gotten the sign for you. Somebody's gonna have to then assure that it's just a drop off. They're dropping them off, and you're gonna have to.
Right, and so what we're trying to get to here, because we have to craft a law that says if you do something wrong, you get a ticket, is can people leave their car? If it says no parking, you can't leave your car.
Right.
Do you want people to be able to walk up to the school with their kid? If you do, then it's not no parking, it's student pickup and drop off or something like that that gives a little bit of flexibility there.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to find out is what do
let's call
parents
it
do?
let's call it a drop off only, but it does not restrict the parking situation, because like I mentioned, it would also restrict other people who are coming here to visit, or to have meetings for whatever reason. I think we can then go back to the school and explain to them that you got what you asked for in a sense of a sign, but now you're gonna have to figure out how to flow that traffic because they cannot park there during the hours.
So the answer is it's a drop-off zone, pick-up, drop-off zone during the hours, whatever the hours are.
And I think it can be done. They've been doing it already. They've been putting the cones themselves. They've been standing outside watching for the kids and everything. So I think that we can have that discussion further to get them to do so. I feel that it's possible. So if we can at least draft it that way, that it's a drop-off, and then that they can use it for other situations.
So does somebody want to make that as a motion?
So I'll move that we word it as student pickup and drop off only with the hours as listed in the order.
Second that.
So on the motion that we amend this order to read, we're providing a sign at Lawrence School for student drop-off and pickup only between the hours of 8 and 9:30 and 2:30 to 3:30 p.m.
Monday to Friday, do you have to get that much
Yeah,
detail?
Monday through Friday.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Except on federal holidays and.
So moved. Okay, great. Is there a motion then to take up item number 2?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We have a 15-minute parking sign between business hours be allowed in front of the Easy Pick convenience store on 224 Lyman Street. Customers find it difficult to find parking in front of the business or double parking. Under discussion, Councilor LeBron Martinez, do you want to give us a,
So I received a call from actually the owner, and I'm sorry, I don't have his name on me right now, but I do have his name if in case we need it. But the issue was in regards to some customers coming in, they just want to grab something and get going, nothing to stay, parking. But it is also parking that is residential, meaning that there's some people who park there overnight and then they don't move the cars on quick enough during the morning, and they're having some difficulties where people are also double parking. Then I witnessed the other day the trucks that come and bring some deliveries at times parked right on Lyman against the people who are parked there because they don't have a place to drop off, right? So if that's something that can be considered, it is a request.
so under discussion, I have Bartley, Bacon, and Alexander.
Actually, I
Well,
just read,
listen to Bill first.
I read it from Bill first before I have a.
I was thinking of Jan's flowers.
Okay,
Yeah, we looked at the site and the counselor's correct. There is a lot of residential parking in that area, in that block, and I can certainly see where, there's a possibility where residents would park in front of the store and not move, during business hours. So, to put a 15-minute parking space there in front of that address, would certainly help the business owner and free up space. To address the drop-off and deliveries, I think that's a whole different situation. Some of these trucks are pretty large, and you've seen some of the drop-off and loading areas in the downtown here that the trucks don't even use because they're still too big to use those spots. So I think to go to that extreme, to do a loading zone or something for that little convenience store, I think it's going to probably displace a lot of folks in that neighborhood.
It's okay. I don't have a
So
problem.
I guess I'd recommend the 15-minute spot in front of the store, but maybe not the loading zone.
okay, Councilor Bartley, Bacon, and then Alexander.
Yeah, Bill summed up, especially about the loading on High Street. You see these 18-wheelers just take up a whole lane. So I think you summed up pretty much what I was going to say, so thank you.
Okay, Bacon.
Thanks, Bill. I was thinking about the flower shop where we did a similar thing, and if I recall correctly, we set up the 15-minute parking between the hours of 9 and 5, because those were the business hours for that business. So do we know what the business hours are at this site?
The convenience store.
Probably 6 a.m. to midnight.
No, the morning, it's a 10,
yeah.
well, my assumption, I went based on the business hours that I think is 10 to, 10 maybe? But
Well,
I would say much earlier.
much earlier?
well,
10, I'm sorry, I should have asked that question, but I took it upon myself to do it based on what I know.
okay. The only reason I bring it up is because when there is that kind of competition, what we looked at in terms of the flower shop was people being able to park there overnight, because they weren't interfering with the business. But if we run it, no parking, say 8 to 10 p.m., that would make it really impossible for anybody else to park there reasonably. So I guess if you want to try to balance it out and leave some parking for the residents, you might say 15-minute parking between the hours of 9 to 5, and that maybe strikes a balance.
I'm fine with it.
8?
And we have a lot of,
Convenience store, that's why, so. That's what I
Is
was
that-
saying, yeah.
So I would offer a motion that we would post 15-minute parking between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5
Second.
p.m.
motion's been made and seconded,
So 8 to 10, the hours.
The store hours? are
Say that again?
8 to 10 are the
Basically,
store hours.
8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
And I do want to just, I just do want to note that they, we have a number of handicap placards that we put up on the Cabot Street, by the synagogue, that we limited the hours because we were looking
Correct.
for overnight parking. I think we did go to 5 p.m. on those.
Right. But business is different. I mean, they're because they're like an organization that opens up to a certain time. So it's different from when you're opening a business. I don't see convenience stores closing at 5 o'clock, but willing to work on it. If at least can we push it to at least 8? Because
Bill, did you say that parking was a problem on Lyman Street, residential parking? Because I thought I heard you say that it's not really that competitive.
No, in that area, there's a number of above second, third story apartments on those blocks in there. And when we were up there this afternoon midday, it was quite a bit of on-street parking already being used. So I can only imagine it gets worse after 5 o'clock.
8 to 5 gets them 80% better than it is.
the day I went, I had to park inside the little what do you call that little mall place there. That's why I had to park because I couldn't find no parking nearby.
So, on the floor is a motion that's been made and seconded for 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Counselor Alexander, I see your hand going up. Do you want to speak on this motion, or do you
Yeah,
want?
I do.
Okay.
I think two things. One, I think it's would be not a bad idea if the city were consistent in when we have a 15 minutes during business hours, that the business hours are kind of the same throughout the city, not, this business, but, next week they change their business hours and they come in and say, I need a different sign. We're open till 10 on Friday nights. Can you please give us a new sign? The other thing I think is that we do need to balance the needs of the residents who are, paying taxes and paying rent and everything against the business who's also paying taxes and paying rent and everything. And the residents presumably have, in many cases at least, a normal day job where they are coming home at 5 o'clock and they need a place to put their car. And so I'm fine clearing the street during the business day. Most residents are at their place of work during the day. So don't walk to your work and leave your car sitting in front of somebody else's business. That's rude. But I do think we should cut it off at 5 o'clock. And if the other signs throughout the city are 9 to 5, then I would say, let's make this 9 to 5. If the others are 8 to 5, I'm fine with 8 to 5. But I think consistency would be a good thing, just so people know what to do. Thanks.
So on the motion then, for 8 to 5 p.m., all in favor? Aye, so moved. Is there a motion then to adopt this item?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adopt a 15-minute parking sign in front of 224 Lyman Street, where 15-minute parking exists between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. All right. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
That's
Oh,
interesting.
is it duplicate?
Yeah, I just noticed that they duplicated that, but there was another order. I don't know if there's
It's probably, it was
Any-
probably supposed to be that one, but I don't have a record of it.
any record, but it's not. This is not. I think there was another order, and now I don't have. I'm sorry, I filed so many orders. But I guess it's not here. It's not in the jacket.
I think
Well,
that this is, I think this is a typo. I did look through the agenda, but if you could find the order that you think you're talking about, we could probably pull it up, or at least discuss it while you're here.
On the computer, it's the same thing as printed out here. They're dupes. It's a duplicate.
So why don't we go on to the other items on the agenda, and if you could find the order that you filed,
Thank you.
we could probably discuss it at that point.
Motion to take up number 4?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to take up item number 4. All in favor? So moved. Item number 4 is an order that a stop sign be installed at Ashley Road and Route 202. Filed by Counselor Bacon. Under discussion, Counselor Bacon.
Thanks. The reason I filed this is because it was really the only concrete feedback I got from an order to try to address the speeding and the cutting through and everything up in the Sunset Ashley Road area, and it was just noted that there was no stop sign there. I mean, people have to stop anyway. It's the end of a road going on to another road, but it does sort of go at a bit of an angle. There's many issues up there. That's not really the main one, but it's like anything that will sort of make it a little more structured seems to be a positive.
With that.
Do you want to hear both thoughts on it, or?
I concur.
Okay.
It's something we should do.
Motion has been made, seconded. All in favor? Aye. So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. So moved. That the DPW adopt stop signs on Nonotuck and Allen and on Allen Street eastbound on the corner of Waldo. Could this be a Counselor Alexander order?
Could this be a Counselor Jordan order? No, it's not.
Under discussion, Counselor Alexander.
Yeah, so both of these are constituent requests, both of these are safety issues. There's a park occupying the block that both of these intersections abut. There are kids crossing the street all the time. People don't pay a lot of attention. People cruise down Allen Street quite quickly through that intersection. So, you know, just for the safety of the kids who play in the park, especially given the fact that a car, I think it was the year before last, crashed through the fence at one of these two corners and took out the park bench, which fortunately nobody was sitting on at the moment. You know, we took that particular corner up once before, and I remember Yep's predecessor, Matt, saying, well, the state warrants don't show enough accidents at that corner, so I said, oh, great, we have to wait until somebody's killed before we can put up a stop sign. But, you know, these are quiet residential streets. They should be stopped frequently, particularly right around a park like that. There are lots of unattended kids playing in that park. There are ball games in that park. There are balls rolling out with kids chasing them, you know, behind the rolling ball. It's time we did something there. So if we can get those two stop signs up, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Bill?
As Counselor mentioned, there are warrant analysis to be done. We need to look at the accident history and other factors, and I think that's something that Yem will want to take a look at and report back on whether they're able to be installed per the guidance that we have.
Counselor Alexander.
Bill, can you define able to be installed? Does the state prohibit you from installing a stop sign?
Well, it gets, my first take on it is it comes down to liability. If you have these standards and guidances that are provided and you choose to not follow them, and there's an accident or some issue, and the lawyers get involved, then you have to defend why you've opted to go against the
So that would be an accident because somebody did stop at a stop sign, because right now we have no stop sign, so people can blow through the intersection.
Right, and those are engineering judgments that would have to be made in determining one way or the other, whether we do a sign or not, and you have to weigh that's part of the analysis that's done.
How many times has the city been sued because there was a stop sign and somebody ignored it?
I have no idea.
More than zero?
I don't know.
Okay, I think the answer is zero. I checked with legal. I'm not really buying the argument that we need to wait until somebody gets hurt before the state says it's okay to put a stop sign up. So, with all due respect, go ahead and take a look at the corners, make your determination. But if it all comes down to we're scared that we're exposing the city to a little bit of liability if somebody, I don't know what, if they ignore the stop sign, we've got the same problem than if there's no stop sign.
Right.
So the only issue is if they stop at the stop sign and what, somebody rear ends them because they didn't expect them to stop at a stop sign? Suddenly we have liability because the state didn't recommend a stop sign? No. So I don't think the liability argument is something we should be worrying about very strongly. There is minimal liability that the city's being exposed to, and there's no history of any problem with that kind of liability in the city. So let's see if we can move past that particular argument into the, is this in the best interest of the neighborhood when people on both of these streets are asking for this? Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I just
Counselor
have a
Bacon?
question. What is the speed limit over there? Because I was just wondering if it's higher than 30.
30 miles an hour.
30?
30.
I mean, do we have the discretion to lower that? Because I was just coming down, what was the street I was cutting through to get down here? And the speed monitor was up, and it said 25, and I was thinking, this looks like a 30-mile-an-hour street to me. But it said our ordinance is 25.
There is a process to change speed limits. It's a very, you think the Warren analysis for a stop sign is complicated. It's speed, changing the speed limit is a big deal. And it does require state approval.
Really?
It's, I hear you. It's a balance of risk. And we've talked about that many times over the years as to, you know, what's your exposure to risk? And there's always risk. There's always exposure in some form or fashion. And you have to balance with, you have to figure out, you know, how much is acceptable.
I remember that point now. I withdraw my question.
So is there
Second.
motion made and seconded to table? All in favor? So moved. Item number 6 filed by Counselor Shatanoff. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. That a speed sign be installed on Vadnais, placed so that it's visible to cars traveling down Vadnais. Under discussion, Counselor Shatanoff.
Thank you. Counselor McGee should be on this order too, because we both filed it. Just a request by constituent, especially during the school year, people just are flying down the street. There's a lot of kids on that street playing basketball, doing whatnot, so they asked, I filed.
So it's George where it meets, Vadnais where it meets George?
No, Vadnais on Hammer Street,
Northampton.
going down.
Just coming off Northampton as you go down.
Okay.
People go too quick.
Okay.
We're just putting a sign up, right? We're not changing any ordinance, right?
No, it's,
okay.
it's the speed limit there is currently
Yeah,
30.
Oh, it's a speed sign, I say, not a stop sign, sorry.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Motion approved. Item approved.
Madam Chair, can we take 7 and 8 up as a package?
Sure. Motion to suspend the necessary rules, made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
7 and 8 as a package. Both filed by Counselor Bartley. 7 says that no parking shall be allowed on the west side of Race Street, abutting the canal walk from Dwight Street on the north to Appleton Street to the south. And item number 8 says that no parking shall be allowed on either side of Dwight Street, east of Main Street, as part of the Holyoke Rail Platform Vehicular Loop.
Yeah, so I filed these both on behalf of the Economic Development Office. I think the second one, number 8, is easier, because that's, I know it's hard to picture if you don't have it right in your mind, but it's there's a little piece of Holyoke Road called Dwight Street that's in front of the Hotel Jess. It's in front of the Hotel Jess, and it kind of feeds directly into the new parking lot for the rail platform.
Yep.
And so that's one piece, and then, exactly, yeah, right for the Hotel Jess, Counselor Alexander, correct. So that was just a sort of make sure that just to clear the lane, and we'll let Bill speak to both these, obviously, and number 7, again, that was from Marcos. He asked me to file this on his behalf. That is just on Race Street in between Dwight and Appleton. And I did speak to him about the, number of businesses down there, and he said, he gave me a great explanation, and I wish I could remember all of it, but the details, the gist of it was there's ample parking, there's really, this is for, it wasn't for aesthetics, but he gave me another reason, and I wish I had a better recollection of it, but I can tell you it was a reasonable, when he explained it to me. I wish it was better in my mind, so I'll let Bill address it if you would.
Bill?
I printed Marcos's explanation for
Oh,
the
thank you,
parking on.
because my memory is shot.
It was
Thank you.
quite lengthy, and
Yeah.
I'll paraphrase.
Thank you.
The response. To take up the second, or the first order, on the Dwight Street, no parking, yes, that's the lower section, the tail end of Dwight Street, east of Main. It's part of the driveway entrance, and exit to the rail platform, and I think this is a housekeeping thing, just to keep anyone from parking in that, in
says
that
park
that
here.
roadway that would potentially block the entrance and the exit to the
Parking lot.
parking lot in the train station. So I don't see that being a concern. And anybody, if the Jess is developed or any of the businesses down there, they can use the parking lot. They don't have to park right there at the curb and the street. So this is some housekeeping for that neighborhood. The Race Street no parking, this all relates to the design and the construction of the Canal Walk, Phase 2, the Canal Walk going from Dwight Street to Appleton on the west side of Race Street. That's almost complete, and again, we need to complete the plan and put this parking restriction in place. If you look at the layout of Race Street as designed under the Canal Walk plan, starting from east to west, you've got the sidewalks in front of the businesses, you've got on-street parking periodic, spaced out along that side of Race Street. Then you have two 11-foot travel lanes on Race, and then there's I believe it's a 6-foot bike lane, because that's part of the requirements, the design of the Canal Walk project is to do a complete streets design and put a bike lane in the street, as
Bike
well
lane.
as the wide sidewalks of the Canal Walk to, again, encourage its use in walking and pedestrian access. So when you put all that in there, there really isn't room for parking along the west side of Race Street. And it's all been... Essentially, yes, and that's all been part of the planning and the development of the Canal Walk project that's been going on for years, and it was always in the original intent, and has been discussed and reviewed at numerous meetings and public hearings and whatnot. That this hasn't changed. It's been, again, the design and it's being built the way it's been designed, and it's just not designed for parking along that west side. So we need to have an ordinance that prohibits folks from jamming up things and parking in the bike lane, basically.
I just want to say, I've seen images of bike lanes that are next to the sidewalks, and then there's a traffic lane on the outside of I mean, I guess it's what we're using now.
That is what that is.
Do we have two-way traffic on Ray Street continuing after the build out of the bike lane?
Yes, we have two lanes on all of Race Street still, including this section that we're talking about at the Canal Walk, yes.
Okay.
Motion to adopt and refer to the engineer for the appropriate measurements for the ordinance.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Motion to take up item number...
We didn't take up, or did we take up 7 and 8 as a package? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I didn't know if we had a discussion of both, but I think we did. That's what it is. Item number 9, filed by Councilor Bartley. His motion has been made and seconded to take it up. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Due to traffic violations and the number of accidents, the city should work with the owners of Kmart Plaza to reconfigure the Whiting Farms Road entrance and exit. Under discussion,
Okay, so
Councilor
this is
Bartley.
a recurring theme. If councilors have questions about this, you can ask them now or ask me now. I know that probably each of you have witnessed what goes on there, and there was I knew I had it here somewhere. Please see attached.
What is
Okay.
it now? There's no left turn out of the plaza onto Whiting Farms?
There's no left turn
into the plaza
into the plaza.
or
There's no
out.
left turn in?
Into, correct, there's no left turn into the plaza. Right, right. It happens on easily on, not on a minute-by-minute basis, because that's, that's exaggeration, but it happens multiple times an hour. So the thinking was that, and I've had this in front of Yem's predecessor for a while, and so the hope is, and I don't see us approving anything tonight, but I just want to get it back on our, that the chair took it up. I really appreciate it, but I mean, I filed something similar to this probably a couple years ago, and I don't know what happened to it, but I refiled it in August, and I'm so glad we took it up tonight. So Bill, you and I have been there together. You and I have witnessed, I've witnessed PVTA buses turn left and go up and over that curbing. I've seen an 18-wheeler do it one time as well. So what can we, and I'll just give my 2 cents. My opinion, it should be a legal left-hand turn with a dedicated left-hand lane. So you take the right off of Northampton or the left off of Northampton, and you have an option. Either go straight up Whiting Farms towards the mall, or you're going to a dedicated left-hand lane into Kmart Plaza. So that's my 2 cents, but
Bill's gonna say put up a Jersey
Fire away.
barrier.
Some planters.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, and I don't know if this, I think the city could do this without the property owner saying anything about it. Could we just close off that curb cut? And just, I'm not saying let's do that, I'm saying, could we consider that as an option and just say, to get into that plaza, you get in off Northampton Street? Yeah, but the curb cut's not theirs.
I don't know what the legal implications of that would be. I think I'd be upset if I were the property owner and we cut off a main access for my customers, but I don't think I've ever
But it's really,
looked
correct
and
me if I'm
considered
wrong.
that anywhere.
It's
so.
really only of use for people coming down Whiting Farms, who, if there were no curb cut there, they would have to get to the light, take a right and a right, and go into the plaza. Anybody coming down Northampton Street, it's equally convenient to go through that light. If you're going south on Northampton Street, it's equally convenient to go through the light and turn into the plaza off Northampton. If you're coming north on Northampton Street, you get to the plaza driveway first. So it's really the Whiting Farms traffic that, for whom it matters. I'm just saying that it would solve the problem. I'm not sure it's a good solution, but it would solve the problem. So I thought I'd throw it out there.
I hear you. It's a lot of buildup on Northampton Street, and that's really where and Mrs. Norris was a big one for that, and I'm sure Tony was as well, and any other Ward 3 councilors. It's always been kind of a sticking point, Bill, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think you touched a little bit on history. I think going way back, the history of this situation was that we did a traffic improvement project on Northampton Street to try to deal with a number of traffic-related issues there. And one of them was this steady right-hand turn off of Northampton Street and the flow of that traffic off Northampton Street onto Whiting Farms Road to the left into the plaza. And that was creating some, and I can't recall exactly, but there was some concern about some hazard that steady flow of traffic was creating, because there was a free right, basically it was right on red, and then nobody was stopping, and everybody was favoring that movement. So the plan was changed to require, and there's signs that were put up that would require, if you wanted to get into Kmart Plaza, you had to go straight south on Northampton Street and enter into the plaza off of Route 5 further south. And that the plaza entrance on Whiting Farms was reconfigured to favor only traffic coming in from Whiting Farms, down Whiting Farms, and taking a right, and not to take a left. There's a funny shaped island in there that kind of to make it a little more difficult, not impossible, but more difficult for folks to take that illegal left. An ordinance was passed to make that an illegal left turn, but they've tried to enforce it over the years. If people don't take the illegal left turn, they go up the street and they make a U-turn in the fire department parking lot, and they come back down that way. So they're creating another potential hazard with using the fire station parking lot as a turnaround spot. So I don't think it ever functioned the way we intended it or wanted it to. It has been constantly abused daily by folks that are getting around that island and using that as an entrance.
And I want you to keep going, but I just want to make the point here, because HPD has, now, and I want the counselors that don't live in this area just to really picture, HPD has posted a marked vehicle just outside of that entryway on Whiting Farms Road. So it's on the street, just before the entryway, with a marked vehicle, and cars just drive right in there, and so and I've seen the gentlemen and the ladies on HPD are doing a great job. He'll flick the lights on, flower right into Kmart and say, "What are you doing?" And so here's your ticket, and it's great. It's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't prevent it, other than even when they're there, it doesn't prevent it. But and if I could find my darn email, but there's been several accidents, and so I know Yemo looked that up, and you'll have that. There's a recent traffic study by the Chief Nicewager put together, and there's numerous accidents because people make the illegal left into the plaza. So, thank you.
So I have a question, Bill. Is it possible to move that curb cut and entrance forward more? So let's say that would be eastward more? Away from the intersection. So that if we did have a dedicated lane, I mean, you know, like when you're coming,
Yes.
if you're making a left turn from Northampton Street onto Whiting's Farm Road and you have to get into a left lane, that's no problem. But to come from the north part of Northampton Street, traveling south and make the right-hand turn and then have to quickly get into that left lane, I think that you may be, you might find it more challenging to get over into that left lane unless it were further up. You get more time.
They can just go straight and take a right.
You're right.
Yeah, it worked very fluidly before we made the illegal left and put the aisle in. It was a very easy movement, and a lot of people used it. Right off of Northampton Street, quick left off of Whiting Farms. It worked pretty well, I think, for a long time. It just, I think it just never performed the way, people never responded to it the way we wanted them to, and it just hasn't worked very well, and it's created new problems. So to carry the discussion a little further, I did talk with the planning department. They have, or economic development, they have a contact that they forwarded me today for the property owners. I would, I'm sure they wouldn't mind if we removed the island and made that more accessible, because obviously that brings more cars, make it more convenient for cars to get into their business. I just want to do it, and it may be on our property anyway, but I want to do it with the knowledge and the consent of the property owner, so we don't have bad feelings or any misunderstandings there. So I do have a contact for the property.
Tessa Murphy Romboletti did a great job of hunting them down on a previous order I filed. She really should be credited for her diligence.
So I offered to take that, and they sent me that information, and I offered to contact the folks and give them a heads up on what we'd like to do there and see if they have any issues.
So, absolutely, but I really just appreciate Chairman Lisi and all the council for being, and Rebecca and I were there, Bill, 2 years ago, and we were sitting there at the fire department and
Counting the U-turns.
and sure, right in front of us. I mean, a legal U-turn right in front of the bay doors where the guys and gals are pulling out to go rescue people. So, I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not good. Thank you. Motion table.
Motion made to table?
Second.
I'm sorry, to complete the discussion, Counselor Alexander.
Thanks, sorry, I'll be quick. I just want to say that in listening to all of the different issues here, the people making illegal UEs in front of the fire department, all of the people turning into that entrance coming off Northampton Street are doing it. Nobody's coming from the south on Northampton Street and using that entrance. It's less convenient than going through the main entrance into the plaza. So all of the traffic is either Whiting Farms traffic or it's traffic southbound on Northampton Street that is essentially taking advantage of the fact that there's a right on red. They don't want to wait for the light. So they're blowing the traffic light, taking a right and a left. And in so doing, they're blowing through a light, essentially. They're pulling they're making a right turn and then stopping because half the time they can't make the left because there's traffic on Whiting Farms. So all of a sudden they're clogging up Whiting Farms Road. All of these issues would, I'm just gonna say, all these issues would go away if you just closed that curb cut. Traffic would flow better, everybody would use the traffic light, everything would work a heck of a lot better. I suspect that, yes, a few people would be slightly discomfited by the fact that coming down Whiting Farms, you now have to go to the traffic light, take a right, which is a right on red, and go into the main entrance. But it's essentially the same argument that right now we're talking about redeveloping, the Lynch School. We have the right school, the one that's slated to be torn down, something else is gonna go there. And we're probably not going to allow an entrance on Dwight right there, because you'd be coming off the highway, cutting across a couple of lanes and stopping to make a turn. It's not a good idea. This is not a good idea. You've got an entrance that's just a few feet from the intersection, and it's causing all kinds of problems, including people turning around in a fire department parking lot. I mean, come on. So I would, just broach that topic with somebody and see if maybe they'd be amenable to that because it would improve the flow over there. That's all. Thanks.
Counselor Bacon and then Counselor Bartley.
Thanks. I would just caution on that, because if the people can take the right and then take a legal left, it keeps the backup from going down Northampton Street so much, and that is the huge backup. All the way past the funeral home, it keeps going and going and going, because nobody can move. So if they can only go straight and go in from Northampton Street, I think it's creating more problems the other way. And there isn't usually a huge backup on Whiting Farms. But it's when you create rules that contradict common sense of where people will go, they keep doing it anyway. And I think that's simply what this is. I think there was a good intention, and it ended up with unintended consequences, because the natural flow is the right and the left. That's all. Thanks.
So Bill and Yem, how do you like your job so far? Isn't it great? So I guess my comment, and I want to ask this for Councilor Alexander's traffic order as well, relative to Waldo and Allen. How much lead time do you need on this, guys? I mean, so if Rebecca brings this up again in 2 months, or I don't know, 8 years, I mean, whatever.
Sure.
I was just kind of, what kind of lead
Not 2
time?
weeks.
A month, we could probably put it, we could take it up best on the 28th or whatever that Tuesday is in October. The second Tuesday that we would meet would be the what?
So we can sort of keep the expectation level.
27th, the 27th would be the next time that we could put this on the agenda. Would that give you enough time for
We
and
should.
for also the Waldo study? So I'll put this,
So you want a motion to table to October 27th?
No, I'm good with just a table. I'm good, yeah.
but I'll pencil this in, and work with Ryan to get this on a draft agenda for the 27th.
All right.
Take up item number 10.
We didn't actually give final motion.
Motion to table?
Motion made and seconded to table, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Sitting engineer investigate stopping the allowance for right on red turning from Route 141 onto Northampton Street in front of Northampton Street Fire Station. This is filed by Councilor Jordan. Under discussion, I think we'll defer to Bill on this one unless, Jen, if you're,
I'll speak on it.
you want to?
Yeah, I'm not gonna speak for Kevin, but I'll speak for the order. It would be nice to have a no turn on, I mean, it's just crazy there. People just fly off the highway. They fly. It doesn't matter if the light's green or red, and I don't even think they yield for the red or stop for the red, they just go. So, I'm amazed there's not more accidents there than there is in front of Dunkin' Donuts. It's actually amazing, but, so I'm assuming that's the purpose, just to stop people from just flying off the highway, because they do it constantly. They fly off the highway, they go down the breakdown lane instead of the lane they're supposed to. It's pretty crazy.
Would a right on red after a stop, like what we have coming off of, I can't even think tonight, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, at Linden Street. Yeah, we were looking at that. It actually has its own little lane and its own signal for, red or green arrow, to allow it to go. I think what people are probably doing, and unfortunately, we were there today, and they had the whole lane closed off for construction.
yeah.
But we couldn't see anybody actually, checking it out. But I think, they handle it like a stop sign. They just roll right through it, and it's a yield.
Yeah.
And,
So is it currently a right arrow, so it's actually a no turn on red, or is a right on red allowed?
Well, that's, I wasn't sure. I think that's the question I asked Yem today in the car. It's like, when you have a lane like that and you have an arrow, do you get to make a right on red?
It's not a red arrow, though, is it, Bill? Isn't it a red light and a green arrow?
It's a red, right,
It's a,
It's a red round?
But people
It's
treat
red round.
it like a yield sign.
They do.
If it were a red
do you-
arrow, I think.
But do you have to stop and wait for your own green arrow there to go? I'm not sure how that would function. We only have, I think we only have one of them, one situation in town like that where it has its own little signal.
If we changed it to a red arrow, it would be clearer that you should stop.
Yeah, the red arrow, I think that says, my lane says no turn on red.
If I can add just one other point to that, that shape of that intersection, because it's got its own lane, you're not, if you pull up to a T and you look left, and then you can look right pretty easily, people are like looking over their shoulder to look left, which means they have no idea what's going on at the fire station when they pull out.
Right, and
So it
we
makes it
try
that
to
much more
avoid
dangerous.
situations where you have that kind of a Y situation where you have to look far beyond to your left. And as drivers get older and people have a harder time making that, you want to avoid Y intersections where you can, like that. So that would lend me to think that maybe that is a dedicated signal, so that you don't have to look around, you look straight ahead at the signal and respond accordingly. But, yeah, maybe
there's no-
maybe
there's
a
no
red
signal?
arrow and a no turn on red would help that, for folks to stop.
And can we change, is it just changing the lens? Is that doable?
I'll have to look at that. That's an older signal. It may be that simple as just to put in a template there that
I mean,
shows.
I guess I'd like to look at the traffic flow also. I mean, what it cost if there's a sign to say no turn on red, and then how much of a backup would you see? If it's, and looking at the accident report.
Traffic, but it's a quick light too.
Pretty quick light.
But you're right. I can imagine the traffic speed coming down the hill and just rolling right around that corner.
Oh, they do.
You got a fire station there. I'm surprised we haven't had a discussion about this intersection a long time ago, but
I think there's a fire preemption feature for that.
Yeah.
Already.
we'd like to look at it a little bit more than this afternoon when we couldn't look at it because it was closed.
Construction there, yeah.
So we could probably put this back on the 1027
Second.
agenda, just as a heads up. Motion has been made and seconded to table. All in favor? So
Should
moved.
take up number 11?
Before we take up 11 and 12, which are handicap placards, Ryan did deliver the two LeBron Martinez orders that didn't make it onto the agenda because of the typo, so if we could take them up.
Motion to take up and read into the record.
Yep,
So it's two that are missing?
there were two that were missing.
And I just realized, I think there's a third one. There's an issue with number,
Well, push your luck.
yeah, there's the 39 with the parking issue on roadhouses on Center Street. And I think it was actually directed to the ordinance committee. Has that come in front of you before? Because this is one of the,
Ryan is the keeper of the jacket.
no, but has it come before, like in this month? Because it was voted the 15th, the last.
I don't know, this is the first time we've met on traffic
making sure.
ordinances in a long
Just making
time.
sure. It's
Probably
here.
since the beginning of the summer.
It just came in.
These were on the 15th.
Yeah.
So motion to take up the two missing ones and read them into the record.
Yep. All right, so we'll take them one at a time. The first one is ordered that 3 additional parking spaces be designated and permitted from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and 3 to 5:30 p.m. on Dwight Street for Square One Daycare. Their address is listed as 233-243 High Street, but the parking is needed on Dwight Street. These parking spaces will enable parents to safely drop off and pick up their children during high-traffic times when their safety would otherwise be compromised. Under discussion, Councilor LeBron Martinez.
So, it is, a request that was made by the administration of the Square One Daycare. And I did go at different times to kind of, sort of see what is really happening during that time. And it is true, people are double parking. There is actually a fire hydrant right in front of the school, right there. And as I was actually taking pictures, some parents asked me, "What are you doing?" And people have been ticketed there for parking. I guess it's a fire hydrant right there. And then so the limit is even less. I mean, the amount of parking is even less than what you see, because then there's a sign that it says no parking right almost at the corner. So it's probably like one parking for them to drop off and run in and out. So they're trying to see if there's another, like, maybe across the street that it could be designated, or if something can be worked out where we probably remove a parking. But I'm actually going to leave that to the experts, as long as I get the 3 parkings that has been requested. Because it is an issue with the fire hydrant. I've seen it. I witnessed it. I was there. I walked it and watched it for a while. So
let me ask you a really quick question. It sounds like a very similar situation to the Lawrence School situation, the need for drop-off and pick-up
right.
spaces. So can we do the same thing that we did there, where we created a student drop-off zone for drop-off and pick-up only, Monday through Friday, between these hours?
That works out.
Well, this is a little different. I'm trying to picture what's over there now. This is on the,
Right.
This
right.
corner,
right on the south side of Dwight Street, next to Square One in the health center,
Right.
on that side of the street.
Right. That is like an alley kind of like way where you can't get in and park in there. Yep.
I come that way quite often, and I see the parents dropping off in a little van and all coming by and flashing lights, and nobody stops at it, and the unloading for the daycare. The point I had about that suggested order, similar to what we talked about earlier, these are little kids. These are car seat kids.
Yeah.
These are babies that have to have time to get unloaded and delivered. These aren't little toddlers that you're gonna open a door and shove them out and let them run into school. This is a different kind of setup. So I guess I would suggest that we think about that in a little bit different light on the time or what activity is going to be allowed there. I'm trying to think, isn't there a loading zone there now? Didn't we leave a loading zone? And I have to look.
there is. It's
There used to be for the furniture store.
The
and
corner is a parking spot. Then there's a no loading zone, and it's hash marks on the.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's used all the time for drop off, and the van parks there. Everybody stops and goes, but I think it's still a loading zone that nobody really uses other than the school. So maybe we can convert
So,
that.
but let me just say that, so as like I was mentioning while I was there, a parent come out and told me that there's been time that area has been also full by others to also dropping off. So that she parked across the street and she got a ticket. I even got a copy of the ticket, so for her to prove to me that she got ticketed by parking on the other side, because she figured, few minutes, I'm run inside, drop them off, and she came back and she got a ticket. So I'm just trying to see if we can really come up with a way that is
Well,
So this
I
is-
can't-
Just to be clear, though, this is all metered parking now?
across the
Except for
street
loading
is
zone?
across the
on the
street
north
is
side,
across the
yes.
street is metered parking.
the opposite.
The side that
This side, there's just the loading zone and then the fire hydrant, there's no parking at all?
One parking.
One parking.
That it says 50, I believe it says 15 minutes. I think I got the
I
pictures.
haven't looked into it yet. It's the first we're talking about it, so I'd have to go and look and see. I know there's a big loading zone there that we haven't changed since back in the Epstein furniture days, so, maybe that can be better used for the daycare drop-off. Since it's right on that side of the street. My other concern is the same concern I have with the Lawrence School and parking on the other side of the street and parents running their kids across mid-block. It's a hazard. They don't go to the crosswalk in the corner. They get out of the car and they right across the street in the middle of the block, and there's a hazard there too. And by encouraging them to park on the other side of the street and drop off and bring their kids across the road, I think it's just looking for potential trouble down the road. So maybe we can look at that drop off, that loading zone area along the south side of Dwight Street and see if we can reconfigure that to something that the school can be used more.
That sounds good. Counselor Bartley wants to make a point.
Yeah, so I'm definitely all for helping the, Square One, the school and all that, and trying to free up some parking. I think we raised this issue numerous times. In fact, we changed, just about those 2 zip cars that have been sitting there on Maple Street illegally, parked illegally for over a year now. So, as you know, Bill, parking it's a little, a little tight, especially in a little quadrant. And with possible business expansion here, across the street, parking might get a little tighter even. So I hope at some point we can revisit the zip car issue. Believe me, I'm all for helping out. We don't want kids crossing the street, but that is a very tiny intersection at Maple and Dwight. It's well marked. The traffic signals are great. The pedestrian lights are great. So it's not a huge burden. But those are the 2 closest. My point is, where those zip cars are, those are the 2 closest parking spots diagonal from Square One. So, thank you.
Anything else then? The motion on the floor was that this be tabled, and there, got a second from Counselor Bartley. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Can you forward us that order so we can have it?
Yep.
Motion to take up the next one.
Second.
Make it.
Yep, the second one filed by Counselor Gladys LeBron Martinez that did not make the agenda this evening is that the City Council, through the Ordinance Committee and Disability Commission, designate the current handicap parking in front of Fernandez Restaurants to patrons between 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. for patrons who come to the restaurant during business hours. So the story here is that currently the handicap parking is being used by the tenants overnight who do not move their cars during business hours and do not allow patrons to park. There are 4 total handicap parking spaces within the street block area for tenants to access. Fernandez business in particular serves lunches to the elder population. The patrons have brought this to my attention. So under discussion, Councilor LeBron Martinez.
So what I'm asking and hoping that we can do is actually give the same, the parking is already right in front of it. It's just to put some time restriction, and then that the tenants can use it after after 5 o'clock, because they don't operate after 5 o'clock. So many of the orders that I have to file, I go around and ask the questions. I don't just come here and request. So I met and watched and sort of went for lunch and saw this, and the situation is real, that people will not remove the cars, and they have a full service for the elders, that Spanish, and it was an issue. So I went and asked people, do you drive, and some people said it's true. So there is parking down the street. What I'm trying to explain is there's actually parking handicap. There's 4 in addition to that one. So including that one is 4 parking. So there's additional parking for tenants who live within that block to park if they needed to do so during that time. What I'm explaining is that they are not moving the car. They leave it overnight and then they don't move it throughout the day. If we can at least open it up for the business with a restriction time, if that's possible.
Thank you. Under discussion, Counselor Alexander, and then maybe Bill will have some ideas.
Thanks. Briefly, I don't believe we can restrict who can park there. If it's a handicap space, it's a handicap space, period. Excuse me.
Take a minute.
I'm so worked up about this. But what we could do, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, is we could leave it as a designated handicap space and simultaneously make it 1 hour parking from 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever you just said.
So you can put a
Independent of the fact that
time
it's a handicap
restriction of
space.
1 hour parking on the handicap placard.
No, separate sign. It's a handicap space, and then totally separately and independently, 1 hour parking, 9 to 5, or whatever the business hours are. Yeah,
Right on the pole, though? On the pole, or no?
on the same sign, on the
Right,
same.
that's what I
same
was
signpost.
asking. I wasn't asking for,
That we can do.
Can we look into
What we
it?
can't do is say handicap only for these handicapped people.
Right.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that. I meant the
Patrons
parking already,
only.
that's why I said it's permitted already, so I'm asking for
Right.
certain timing. Maybe I didn't
But
reword it right,
during those
but,
times, we can put a time window on it, and it's still legal for anybody to use that has a handicap placard.
I think that sounds like a really great course of action. I think,
1 hour, tossing it to the room, is 1 hour good enough for Fernandez?
it's not for Fernandez, it's for the patrons. Fernandez said they're bringing the concern, what do you think?
right?
People in and out in an hour, is that enough time?
I eat in an hour, I don't know about everybody else, but that's what I'm saying, I mean,
Can we move forward on this? And if there's a problem, we can then send it back to committee after the full council meeting next week, but we could assume that we're in the right to move forward on this?
Just a question, do you send these, still send these orders to?
Legal.
Legal form? They may have, they may be able to, give it the thumbs up or not, but.
Yeah, they would
by the
raise
time
a red flag if there was a problem, and it will go to legal.
Yeah.
So if it passes legal, then we can certainly add that restriction to the sign.
And I think the process in the past was that legal was always dependent on engineering for measurements because the legal language reflects where exactly the signage is going to go and extend to. So just in terms of orders of operation.
If they need the measurements or engineer, they send it down to our office and they get it measured and
Measurements would already exist.
already
it
been
already
exist-
exists, right?
For the
Yeah.
handicap sign, we need to copy those measurements to the 1 hour parking ordinance.
Yeah.
And then Councilor LeBron Martinez.
so does it have to go to the commission too, or no?
No, they already had the handicap sign there, and what we're looking to do now is add 1 hour parking to the pole so that that handicap sign is available as 1 hour parking between business hours,
And we need those hours as
9
9 to 5.
to 5.
Yeah, that's good enough. So even they open up at 10 because they don't serve lunches starting until at least 11. So I mean, so even if you want to do 10 to 5, it'll
Let's
be
keep it
fine.
uniform, right?
Yeah, 9 to 5, that's good. So again, I thank you for compromising some of these orders. It's been one of those that I said, oh my God, another request of placards, but it is what it is, and I thank you. Somehow I have an oversight of one that is missing, and then again, I know I made it on time, and it was read. I looked up the agenda, and it was there. So, and it's a very important one. I want to see when is the next meeting? Do we have another meeting coordination for you, or?
The next meeting the ordinance committee has is on the 8th, I think.
Of October?
Sorry, the 13th of October. And the 13th of October, I mean, I think what you're going to want to do is make a motion to pull it out of committee if you want rapid action. Because even the 13th, we have a full agenda of special hearings, public hearings. So the agenda's full, and we wouldn't be able to really take it up until the 20th of October. So if you want more rapid action, you're going to need to request that we remove it from committee, and you'll want to make an argument for what's going on there and what you want to see happen.
Okay.
So maybe check in with Bill as well, so that you guys are on the same page if the city council does adopt something.
Well, and we need legal language if it's ready legal language to adopt if we pull it out of committee.
What's the issue?
What is the issue?
It's a situation on Center Street on the roadhouses. 3 weeks ago, everyone got ticketed down there, and I'm trying to address that issue before the winter. This is an issue that we brought up in a meeting, in a neighborhood meeting last year in regards, and I came and looked up the situation. They will have to have a ticket and all. Somehow, some people were getting ticketed this past weekend, so I'm trying to figure out if something has changed, what's going on.
Can you check with Kara and find out like what's supposed to be happening there, and then check in with the chief to see why it's not happening, and then I don't think it's a matter of signs. I think it's a matter of
the stickers they have these special stickers. I learned that they have to come here, get the stickers. These are people who own these these row houses for some time.
Yep.
10 years, one of them is 10 years. There's some for 8 or so. So all of a sudden this is starting up. It was happening at one point. This is how they got designated those tickets. This goes back to a lot of,
I remember passing the ordinance very, very recently that said this is going to be designated by permit parking, so you needed to have a
Right.
permit, so.
And they-
I don't understand, is it a matter of like the residents not actually getting their permits from the clerk's office,
and
or?
there's some people who got tickets and they had the stickers on them. But it's also an additional discussion to figuring out maybe additional parking in the neighborhood for these roadhouses. But that's the point about this particular order.
So, it's not,
So we'll,
yeah, I think we could also, take that up on the 27th. That would be the next, earliest time that we could really deal with that issue. But in the meantime, I think you want to also check in with, legal and with the chief to find out why that's happening the way that it is. Because I don't really understand the explanation for why they're getting ticketed if they have the permit sticker on the window.
I think there's some families have more than one car, and they're only allowed one permit per household, and they've been using the parking spaces without permits, and they've got tickets.
I just want to say this item isn't even before us, unofficially off the agenda. We're working from memory here, so maybe we should take this up on the 27th.
Yep. Okay, so that's all of it for, our engineering department. And, we do have 2 last items on the agenda. They're handicap placards.
Take up 11 and 12 as a package.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to suspend the necessary rules. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Item number 11 is filed by Counselor Valentin for a handicap placard at 221 Elm Street for Ruben Duran. This has been received, reviewed, and recommended for adoption by the Chair of the Commission on Disabilities, Don Welsh. And then item number 12 is a order filed by Counselor Jordan for a handicap placard in front of 35 North East Street for Lori Ann Bresnahan. This has also been received, reviewed, and recommended for adoption by Donald Welsh, the Chair of the Commission.
Motion to adopt both, pass on to engineering for measurements.
Just under discussion.
Under discussion, Counselor Bartley.
Why do we have names on these?
I think because at the end of the day, the application requires that you put a name on,
Because there has to be an applicant that demonstrates need,
yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
even though anybody else can use the space once it's created.
but their names,
Don't go on
Their names
They
don't go
don't-
on the signage.
good to go, thank you.
All in favor for adoption?
Aye.
So moved.
the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made second to adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't even have.
That one's like crazy.
Thank you.